That Time I Did a Psychedelic Drug for Love 3 Times by Nadia Elahi, published September 2023. Hit the play button below to listen or read and listen at the same time. Sitting at the Morton's Steakhouse Bar in Burbank, I enjoyed and shared a celebratory cocktail with my dear friend Victoria as I listened to her viewpoint. Girl, hit that! DM him back and just say, "Come through." Victoria was encouraging me to offer a second chance to a former suitor who I felt didn't try hard enough to make a date with me. The gist: after my last blog, 47 Trips Around the Sun and Still a Virgin, one of the suitors I mentioned read it, and afterwards he sent me a message to clarify why things never happened with us on a particular night, so my readers would not be misguided. I'll leave out his name and just let you go back and reread the blog and you can figure it out. His clarification was never explained to me on the original night months ago, which I reminded him of, and I also reminded him that I write things from my perspective and what I feel. After all, it is my blog, and I didn't feel he wanted to be with me enough that night. But in fairness, he also ended his message to me with this: "You deserve more than the purple toy at your bedside, though. So let me know if you want to go for a test drive. Respectfully." Honestly, he is a sweet guy with good intentions, and I was attracted to him. We had a nice time the one night we did meet for drinks, and I was ready for another night with him, but that was then. As I'm retelling the story to Victoria, who is the queen who has been graciously editing the recordings of my blogs, she tells me to give said suitor another chance. By the way, Victoria is also a former student and mentee of mine, and despite our vast age difference, she's a millennial, I'm a Gen Xer, she possesses much wisdom and intellect I don't always see in her generation. Sorry, millennials. Anyway, she's encouraging me to give this suitor another opportunity, especially after she saw his pictures on Instagram and confirmed his high level of cuteness, and the photos with his mother really set her off. Oh, he loves his mama. I laugh, but my overall reaction at that point is I also take a deep, long sigh. I'm 47. I'm not chasing after guys anymore. I'm tired. I, am, tired, Flash cut to Nadia's high school memory. 16-year-old Nadia stands at the lockers after school. Cute crush walks over to Nadia. Nadia is clearly nervous but excited to ask him a question. Nadia: "So, do you want to go out sometime?" Cute crush: "Yes." A few days later, cute crush had his best friend inform Nadia that he couldn't go out with her because he started liking someone else. Back to present reality. For the record, dear readers, that was the first time I had ever asked a guy out. It also would have been my first date. A gal wants to be pursued. Am I right, ladies? One could argue this recent said suitor was trying to pursue me with his cheeky test drive message. But just hear me out. Said suitor only DM'd me since I called him out in my last blog, and his "let me know" was putting the ball back into my court, so he's then off the hook. Sure, make Nadia do all the work. Besides, I'm sure he thought nothing of the night we never got together until he read my blog. For me, I put in some work into getting ready that night, a night that is solely dedicated to my strict routine after my 6 p.m. hot yoga class every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and it was a Wednesday night, by the way, and it entails this. Number 1, I go to yoga, get there by 5:30 p.m. to score my spot and relax before class starts. Number 2, once class starts at 6 p.m., the sweaty detoxing begins. Number 3, I come home from yoga around 7:45 p.m., jump in the shower. Number 4, I get dressed in my PJs before snuggling on the couch to relish in my favorite TV watching time. Number 5, As I watch TV, I drink more water to hydrate from the detox of class, maybe have a cup of hot decaf tea. Number 6, I avoid any alcohol before going to bed for the night. And number 7, steps 1 through 6 is me time. But you see, earlier in that day, before me time, I got an Instagram DM from said suitor that read, you, period, me, period, wine, period, tonight, period. Wow, I thought. Bold, sexy, assertive. I like it. Yeah, okay, I'll break my routine for this. Reminder, if you read my last blog, it had been a very dry year, and I didn't mean the weather. So after rushing home from yoga on this Wednesday night, I got all dolled up, showered, shaved, did my hair and makeup, exchanged the PJs out for a cute spaghetti strap dress with a slight dip near the cleavage, and was going to break my no alcohol rule. I literally thought I was going to get laid that night, and since it had been a while, I was more than hot and bothered. Even in yoga class, I was so riled up and horny. The yoga instructor's voice was getting on my nerves. I needed her to end class soon. So yes, I was more than deflated not to have that night happen, and I was pissed. I thought, I'm a 46-year-old woman and I am desirable. Why am I changing my routine for a boy who can't even follow through? Fuck this. I don't need to be waiting on anyone. He was delayed and ended up never coming over. At that point, to me, the reason on why he couldn't come over did not matter to me anymore. He didn't want me enough to follow through. And to be clear, my intentions are not to bash said suitor. If anything, I am bashing the amount of effort I have felt like I have had to put in. I share this all to Victoria, who totally understood where I was coming from. She empathized, and we just moved on to talking about something else. But not before she still remained steadfast in her stance that if I wanted to change my mind about giving said suitor another go, I should. Thus the DM message encouragement from her of come through with that test drive. More importantly, though, the conversation with Victoria reminded me of how much I have changed over the years, especially on how I don't want to change for a guy anymore, at least in a way that could come off desperate. I mean, who wants to feel desperate? See, in the distant past, and even at times more recently, I have done more than my fair share to meet a man halfway, even going beyond that halfway point at times. This recent night after yoga class, an example, only to feel defeated and rejected. However, back to the title of this blog post, finally. Until now, I haven't really shared my experience with an illegal drug with a lot of folks, partly due to it being shunned by most people, meaning the Pakistani kind, and perhaps, well, by everyone. But once upon a time, I took ayahuasca, a psychedelic drug for a boy I loved, and I did it 3 times. I broke all kinds of rules for him, and this one was a big one, as I was more than willing to walk into a world that I knew wasn't for me, even without hearing the voice in my head of my dead Pakistani father's ghost. Are you stupid? What is this drug? Pronounced ayahuasca, as I phonetically try to spell it for you as well. Ayahuasca is the sacrament, or tea, brownish in color, taken in the Santo Daime religion, a religion based out of Brazil in the Amazonian rainforest, which combines a bit of Catholicism, animism, and a mix of other indigenous-like religions all in one. Drinking this tea is how I consumed it, as far as taking part of it in a ceremony of the religion. By the way, that's my summarized definition on its origins, just to give you an idea. You can always just Google Santo Daime and you'll get a similar understanding of it there. On a side note, my experience with it reminds me of an episode from the HBO series Girls, where the lead character, played by Lena Dunham, tries cocaine for the first time to write a journalistic piece about her experience with the drug. Yes, it's dumb and comical at the same time. But I did something just as dumb, but for love. So I guess it's about time I wrote about it. Ayahuasca, according to the Santo Daime Wikipedia page, is referred to as daime within the practice, which contains several psychoactive compounds and is drunk as part of the ceremony. The drinking of daime can induce a strong emetic effect, which is embraced as both emotional and physical purging. Y'all, growing up as a Presbyterian in Monroe, Louisiana, our sacrament consisted of just Welch's grape juice drunk from a tiny little shot-like glass, and it tasted sweet and refreshing as I pushed the gum I was chewing during service to the back of my mouth before sipping the blood of Christ. On the other hand, though the daime sacrament is accurately described earlier by Wikipedia, I would just bluntly say, instead of emetic effect, it makes you poop and puke a lot, and it tastes nasty. I mean, like really gross, bitter, nasty shit. Think Polyjuice potion from the Harry Potter world. The effects can also be compared to the effects of taking LSD, a psychedelic drug, aka where you may hallucinate, or for me, have your thoughts go berserk. This sacrament is made from Amazonian plants which contain DMT, also found in LSD, and though it is an illegal drug, just like LSD or heroin, it is only legal in the US for religious practices. And I participated in 3 religious Santo Daime ceremonies, all legal. So yeah, I tried it more than once. Fool in love, table for one. Though, despite its Amazonian origins, for me, it's mainly the religion I describe that helped the actor, my ex, get off heroin, and then I tried it, like I said, more than once, hoping to win him back because even sometime after we broke up, I still loved him. Newsflash, it didn't work. Newsflash, it was for the best that it didn't work. I'm obviously going to need to provide some backstory here. When I first met the actor in 2005, he admitted he was in recovery from his addiction to heroin. After a motorcycle accident left him with severe back injuries, he was prescribed opioids, and like many people the pharmaceutical industry took advantage of, he became addicted. But at the time, I also didn't think that I would end up falling in love with him, so I didn't really care about his former addiction. Or more so, I didn't think it was a deal breaker. But as you know, I ended up falling in love with him, and then he and I moved back to LA together in 2006. The actor and I originally met in Louisiana during my 4-year hiatus from Los Angeles after life as an aspiring actress wore me down. The actor, too, had lived in LA previously and was also pursuing life in the acting world of Hollywood. In fact, that's how we connected. A mutual friend introduced us, thinking these 2 Louisianans who used to live in LA, both pursuing acting, needed to meet. And she wasn't wrong. We did need to meet, and everything that transpired between us needed to happen as well, I believe, despite the heartbreak I went through from our relationship. But in the beginning of our relationship, the actor was clean until he wasn't. At first, I didn't know he started using again. But soon after we settled in LA, he would never come to bed when he said he would, and in general, he was always never on time for anything. Sometimes when we were out for dinner or a movie, he'd be half asleep or in a daze. He then started wearing socks and long-sleeve shirts a lot during the hot summer. He was trying to cover up the track marks on his arms and in between his toes, common but overused body parts for any heroin user wanting to inject a needle in said body parts to find the best vein. He was obviously trying to keep his shooting up heroin lifestyle from me. So instead of coming to bed at a decent time with me, he was getting high in the living room after I went to sleep and would end up passing out on the couch. I was more aware of these actions after my suspicions of his drug use were made clear to me by him, eventually. And as much as I love the show Breaking Bad, Jesse's use of heroin and his girlfriend's horrific demise from it in season 2 were extremely triggering for me. But eventually the actor got clean for good. Previously, 12-step programs and even methadone never worked for him. And ironically, the person who helped him get clean included his very close friend at the time, Howard Hughes. Yes, that Howard Hughes, if you've been following along with my past blogs. Quick summary, Howard is also an ex of mine, the ex after the actor. I guess what they say about proximity is key with attraction. I still remember the intervention. Mine, to be clear. What I mean by mine is that both Howard Hughes and the actor sat me down in the Eagle Rock apartment I shared with the actor, where he finally admitted to me that he had been using all along, again, confirming my many suspicions and countless questions to him that he had always previously denied until that day. Howard Hughes was there to inform me that he was going to take the actor to his place for the week so he can detox, cold turkey, away from me. Howard wanted to shield me from the horribleness of it all. He said he loved me and the actor and wanted to help us. He then gave me a hug where I just sat, sort of frozen, very still and confused by it all, before breaking down into tears. I wasn't sure what to make of the whole thing at the time. During the week of the actor's detox away from me, I ignored all communication from him. His texts and phone calls to me went unanswered, but the gist of his messages indicated that he was extremely sorry for all the lies he told me and that he loved me very much. He wanted to get clean for good. I was glad to have the break from him, as I just needed time to figure things out for myself, to decide if I wanted to stay with him since I still loved him. In the end, he got clean, came home a new person, and I decided to stay in the relationship. I really did love him. I grew up watching my parents have their share of disagreements or fights like most married people, and I saw them settle things and stick together. I wanted that for me and the actor. I remained firm and loyal in my love for him and wanted things to work out between us, to live as man and wife one day. Soon after his recovery began, I did notice a change in him, a good change as far as staying clean from the fatal drug. However, I also noticed other changes. I felt his newfound sober life didn't include me anymore. Meanwhile, even though I had taken him back, I wasn't fully over the lies and hurt he put me through, so I kept him at an emotional distance a bit as he continued on his path, defeating his demons and the disease of addiction. During this time, he discovered hot yoga. Yes, the same hot yoga I do today, as I ended up trying it back then before taking it on fully years later. And another friend of his introduced him to the Santo Daime, and that's where my psychedelic drug trip comes in, breaking all kinds of good Pakistani girl rules in the process. Even sharing this now, more than a decade after it happened, I know I'm going to shock some folks in my Desi community. I mean, I kept the actor's addiction a secret for so long until I started this blog. It took me much time afterwards to finally admit it to my mother and sister. My American, yet very Pakistani younger brother never liked this guy, and that was without knowing about his drug problem. Can you imagine if he had known? Trust me, I can imagine, and it would not have been good, so I had to keep it a secret. But that was then. Today, I freely choose to talk about it. The actor and I broke up in early 2009. He wanted to live a new life which wouldn't include me anymore. I was crushed, broken. I moved out of our shared apartment soon after. I started over with my life in a new home, but I still loved my ex and thought reconciliation was possible after he went on his walkabout, as he called it, and it didn't help that he still admitted to loving me. We stayed in touch pretty often after breaking up. We were no longer a couple, but we certainly shared nights together as if we were. In a way, our breakup took a couple of years, even more, to fully break up and be apart. At least for me it did. I was stuck in the past as he moved on away from me emotionally, his feelings for me fading. I desperately wanted us to get back together at the time. I knew I had to be part of his newfound world with the daime and his sobriety from heroin, even though I have always since seen the daime as the exchange of one drug for another. The daime does have a reputation for healing those with drug addiction and mental illnesses, thus its controversy over the years since becoming used in the US, even for religious reasons. But that's another debate. But back to the Santo Daime, or at least its ceremonies, also referred to as works. In Portuguese, daime means give me. And in the religion, that's what practitioners are feeling or wanting. For example, give me strength or give me love, or as I like to say, give me the shits. Here's what a ceremony is like. It could last anywhere from 8 to 10 hours, a whole damn day, mostly on weekends, or at least that's when this Los Angeles chapter of it practiced, and it was usually once or twice a month. The ceremonies took place at this hippie-like house nestled up near Topanga Canyon off the 101 freeway through the winding roads near Malibu. I say hippie since it was pretty earthy, woodsy, and very open in its clientele and surroundings. Maybe a little too open for my taste, and yes, everyone seemed to love everyone, if you get my meaning. I also gathered this when I met a girl who graciously helped me to the bathroom as I purged from emetic effects, told me she hooked up with the actor. Nice. During the long hours of the daime works, and you can read this from Google as well, the drinking of the daime occurred in intervals, maybe a total of 3 to 4 times during a ceremony, in between the singing of hymns, all in Portuguese. Participants, dressed mostly in all white, gathered in 2 semicircle shapes, women on one side, the men on the other. It was like 2 choirs facing each other, and then the singing would begin. The actor ended up taking on a deacon-like role in the church, and he even played bongo-like drums, as he was an actual drummer as well, djembe drums, I believe, during the ceremonies. At the start of a ceremony, for a while, it was nice, I admit. The beauty of the hymns, even if I didn't understand the language, was meditative, inspiring, and beautiful, and I can see how one could get wrapped up in it all, especially if one is trying to find love or strength to beat their demons. Isn't that what religions do? But once the daime was consumed, then that's when it got tricky, at least for me. Everyone goes through their own journey once the tea is consumed. For some, they would need to go lie down, like me, in the next room and have their trip. By the way, my trip consisted of thinking I was my aunt who had passed away several years before, who never married or had children, all while my head felt like it was on fire. And the room, or loft-like space as it still shared the same ceiling as the main singing area, was filled with couches and banquettes alongside the wall. This is where I found refuge after I had just puked or shat in the bathroom for a bit, the actor's hookup girl by my side to assist. But regardless of my burning scalp and vomit diarrhea-induced stupor, this tea saved the actor. He was immersed in this world and with its people. It helped him stay clean from heroin. Number 1, he had a car. He didn't have one when we were together. Number 2, he had a good-paying job. He didn't have one when we were together. Number 3, he could pay his bills. He could barely pay his half of rent when we were together. And number 4, he was back at pursuing his craft of acting, taking classes and performing at his old theater again. He didn't do any of that when we were together. He was turning into the man I was hoping for when we were together. The daime offered him a second chance at a better life, so I thought it could do the same for me. I also thought that if the daime was a huge part of his life and I still wanted to be in his life, well, then I guess I better get on board too. So In the summer of 2011, as I saw the good it was doing the actor, I joined him on 3 Santo Daime works. I thought it could make me happy as it did for him. But I'll admit, part of my delay in sharing this experience with family and friends, and even to you, dear reader, is due to the shame I also felt at that time. I was ashamed that I still loved a boy who didn't love me anymore, and I was ashamed of the lengths I would go to make him love me back. I knew it was desperation, and I was embarrassed. I'm definitely not that person today, and I have learned a lot from it, finding compassion for myself for things viewed as mistakes in life. As women, we are taught innately to adapt, even when it could be unfair for us. Women, in general, change or will do things to keep a man, even when they're not worth keeping. But my past experiences with the actor, plus many more since, are why I'm not chasing men anymore. Or rather, I should honestly admit, it makes me very cautious to put myself in a vulnerable position of being the one to initiate something. The reasons why I was so annoyed and frustrated after changing my plans after yoga class for a guy, only to be left feeling unwanted. Likewise, I knew from the get-go that the Santo Daime was never for me. And over a decade since that trip, I don't want to find myself doing something I know is not for me 3 times. I just feel tired from all the past work I have had to do with former boys, the emotional heavy lifting I have to do because, God forbid, I end up alone and a spinster. But I'll take my PJs, a comfy couch, and TV watching time over disappointment and rejection any day because I know my worth. Call me old school, but a man pursues the lady, sets the date and time, and will let me know. And though I know some men find that hard to do, and society is surely not fair to them at times either, fuck it, I say. Come through on your own, and maybe I'll give you a second chance.